Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. My name is Mike Lenz. I'm an entrepreneur and a full-time professional voice actor and audiobook narrator. My goal is to share with you stories from some of the most amazing and inspiring people from all areas of the voiceover industry to help you achieve your dream of becoming a professional voice actor. So please leave me a review over on iTunes and join us over on the web at mikelenzvopodcast.com to be notified of each episode when it comes out. Now, get ready to be inspired. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. Now, before we jump into the show, I want to share a great discount from Voice123. In the show notes, I'll have a link for a 15% discount on a new Voice123 membership at the $395 level and up. I've had tremendous success on the Voice123 casting platform, and I have an affiliate partnership with them to provide this amazing discount to my podcast listeners. This discount can be found in the show notes, so check it out. On today's episode, my guest is Melissa Mirren. With over 8 years of professional voice acting experience, Melissa brings a fresh, versatile voice to every project. Whether it's for commercials, corporate narration, e-learning, animation, video games, or beyond, she consistently delivers high-quality work that resonates with audiences. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I'm so glad that we got to connect.
I
And
know.
I mentioned before we started recording that you showed up on my TikTok feed, and I started following your TikTok videos, and I love the character work that you do on TikTok and in your professional life. So I thought that'd be fun to have a conversation about that. So I wanted to invite you onto the show. So I thought a great place to start would be to just tell our listeners about your journey. You know, how did you find voiceover? How did you get into the industry, and how has that journey been for you?
Yeah, well, I have a long journey. I've been doing this for a while, and I feel like really the journey started when I was little, I'm sure, as anyone else, especially doing the character work. I was one of those kids who I used to do newscasts and pretend I was a news anchor, and then we would write scripts for commercials. So I would, get my baby brother in the shot to do a diapers commercial and things like that. So I've been pretty much kind of making funny videos and doing stuff like that and acting since I was little, but I didn't actually go into voiceover until later in life. And actually acting, I didn't get into until college. I signed up for a drama class in middle school and then chickened out. I was just getting into a new school, moved from out of state and beginning of middle school, and that was pretty terrifying. So I signed up for the first day, and then I decided, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm too scared.
Not happening. Yeah.
And I did regret it. That's why I started in college, because I'd been doing funny videos and things like that my whole life. So I was surprised I didn't pursue it until then, but did a little bit of acting then. And I'm a big bucket list or dream list is what I call it, person. So I am really big on that. And I had always wanted to be in a play. And so I auditioned and got the part in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. And so I was in a musical and just, local play, but that kind of was my first experience, and I just went for it. And yeah, so that was the acting side. But I also, like I said, I didn't start voiceover until a little bit later, and I graduated with a therapeutic recreation degree from college, and I worked in a long-term care home, and so I would read to some of the patients there and read stories. So not only was I doing the acting part before, but then I was talking a lot and reading, and I really enjoyed that. And then I actually ended up being a motivational speaker for a little while. So it's almost like everything I've done in my life has led me up to voice acting, and what I did was helpful for that career. And with motivational speaking, I was motivating kids, and I also did some adult workshops, but to follow their dreams, and I would help them set goals to accomplish some of their career goals and dreams in life. And acting was one of those that I was practicing. And then I also was in marketing and advertising and sales. So I also have that background of knowing what needs to happen in advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So with all of that combined, it really helped me get into voiceover. But I still hadn't, at that time, I was motivational speaking and doing all of that, but I still hadn't thought of voiceover until I met, I was on vacation with family and met Kirby Morrow, and rest in peace, Kirby. He was so wonderful. We ran into him at dinner, and he was on vacation, and somehow my family's table started talking with his table, and he joined us and joined our group, and we were talking, and he was telling us stories about voiceover and all the things he did. And that was when the light bulb went off for me for voiceover. I did never think about voiceover as a career. I don't know, when did you think of voiceover as a career? Have you known it so long, or did you have a light bulb moment?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, everything kind of led up to that point.
Hmm.
And, but I want to hear about how that propelled you. But for me, it was, I was literally a pharmacist and an elected official. I owned an independent pharmacy in my hometown, and I served on my city council. I served as finance commissioner and then served as mayor. So I was actually mayor
Okay.
of my hometown while I was running my pharmacy, which has nothing to do with voiceover
Right.
at all, obviously, right? Although I like speaking on the radio and television. And when I got out of politics, that was really the only thing I really missed about it. I didn't like a lot of the yucky stuff of politics, but I really liked using my voice to communicate.
Hmm.
So then I had this opportunity. I had a lot of free time on my hands, started exploring screenwriting, entered a competition, and I was chosen one of 8 people in New York State that were chosen to for this 10-week program to be taught by an Emmy award-winning screenwriter at the New York Writers Institute. And I was like, what? How's that even happening? But I got to do that. And that just was a creative explosion for me. All of a sudden, I realized this creative side of me that I kind of knew was there, but I never expressed, kind of like you didn't
Right.
really want to do. You wanted to do the play, but then you didn't do it. And we take these little tiny steps because we sort of think we have that calling, but we don't. We're not willing to jump in. Well,
Right.
that was jumping in, and that was just an explosion of creativity. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need to have this as part of my life. So I joined a local filmmakers group, and at one of those meetings, somebody was handing out flyers for voiceover training. And I said, I could go there and learn how to use my voice to communicate. That's one of the things I missed about being involved in politics. I didn't want to run for office again. I'm like, let's go give this a shot. And I could get paid to do it potentially. So I went and took my first voice acting class. And that's when I knew I was like hooked. Okay. So back to Melissa now.
Yeah, yeah. I love hearing everyone's stories and where they come from, and that light bulb moment is so important because sometimes you don't think about this as a career. And he it was all of a sudden, like, everything he was saying, doing the different voices and all that, I went, oh my goodness, that's me. Finally I fit in somewhere. And so I just started diving into research and looked at all kinds of information. He was kind enough to talk with me on the phone a bit and explain a little bit more. And so that's where I started voiceover. And I had also been doing a podcast too. So I was a little for my motivational speaking. So I was kind of used to that.
Yeah,
And
being in front of a microphone to a certain extent. Yeah.
yeah, to a certain extent, not to a voiceover extent. And so I started researching, and my free time was all spent on YouTube videos. I feel like I've watched every single YouTube video out there, just learning the process. And I got on to some free sites. I can't remember what they were called. Maybe Behind the Voice Actors or something. There was, at the time when I started, there were some free sites that you could go on and just do, free work just for fun. And
Mhm.
so I thought, well, I'll just give it a shot and see if I'm any good. I don't know. And then I was booking things right away and getting stuff. And I was fortunate enough to have a friend who worked at a talent agency in Seattle, and they were mostly models, but occasionally did voiceover. So she allowed me just to audition. And my second audition was for a Nintendo commercial, or a voice actually, saying, great job. And, all of that, press ZL to do this. And so I was auditioning for that, and I got shortlisted. And I guess that was a really difficult thing to do. And that was pretty much right off the bat of doing something a little more professional. And I didn't get it. but I still would love to get that that kind of a role. But it was an eye-opening experience to realize, okay, I got this, and
You're in the game, you know?
yeah, there's something there. And so I continued my research and then was auditioning with my agent and got started booking stuff with them. And then I got onto voices.com and started booking stuff with them. So that's kind of how I got into voiceover. And that journey just kept growing over time. And there were quite a few setbacks, though, a lot. And I know that was something we were going to talk about.
Yeah, and I want to just before you do that, I just want to make sure everybody knows when we say shortlisted, those who are listening might not know what that means. Basically, lots of people audition and then they'll bring back some people, a much, much, much smaller number of people, usually a handful, who will then make it sort of to the next round for consideration. So just getting shortlisted in a campaign like Nintendo, which I'm sure was very competitive,
Yeah.
is an accomplishment even in and of itself. So just so everybody's aware of that. And I know I said in the intro, it's been about 8 years because I always get a little bit fuzzy when people ask me how long I've been doing this, because I've been doing it full time for 7, but I've been doing it for a long time before that because I was still running my business and doing this in the margins as I was growing my client base and building those relationships. So it's always kind of a fuzzy number for me in terms of how long I've been doing voiceover. In terms of making the leap, has it been a slow transition for you into this world? Have you or did you at some point say, hey, I'm going all in, I'm doing this
Oh, yeah.
just exclusively this? And when did that turning point happen? And when I want to get to the obstacles too, and they may be part of this as well.
Sure. So I know mine is a little fuzzy too, but there was a number for when I started voices.com and did that, started auditioning for my agent. That was 8. It actually probably is 9 now.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go look back because it was sometime in the summer. So it might even be 9 now. But that's kind of where I count because that's when I took it serious and professionally. I did about a year before then. That's when I met Kirby and, started talking with him and then doing my research and practicing for a year. And I wanted to make my mistakes because I know there's going to be mistakes when you're first learning anything. So I wanted to make any kind of mistakes and really test the waters
Mm-hmm.
and do the free sites. So that's where I did some, fun free work. So I did that for a year. And then it wasn't until I started just booking things and things just started happening that I went, okay, this could be something.
Yeah, this could be something. Yeah.
Exactly. And I had very young kids at the time. And so I was kind of doing it part-time. And then I eventually had more time to do it more full-time. And so basically from then until now, I've been on and off full-time, part-time, depending on what life has thrown at me. And there have been a lot of those curveballs. And I just pick back up again. And I'm a very, very determined person. Like I said before, I am all about bucket lists and dream lists and also balancing, helping other people and connecting with others. I do volunteer work and things like that. So finding that balance. And so I'm very, very driven. And I really felt like I can do this. And I was booking stuff. So I could prove it to myself. And yeah, so it's been on and off, full-time, part-time. I'm full-time now, but.
So let's talk about some of those obstacles then. So you said that life throws us obstacles and we're kind of moving along in this path. And kind of the nice thing about the voiceover world too is that you can kind of go in and out of that full-time, part-time. You have the ability to really, you're going to get out what you put in. And if you need to pull back a little, you can pull back a little bit. But tell us about some of the obstacles that you have encountered along the way.
Yeah, well, I started going full time and then I ended up needing sinus surgery. And that one was, that was a rough one. And it took my higher range away. More so when I sing. I sing too. I haven't really posted too many singing videos yet. They're coming. But
Yes.
I had to basically learn how to use my voice again, because if you're just using your voice in everyday speech, it's no big deal. But what I was doing when I was doing my commercial work, and I should backtrack just a little, pretty much most of what I've done in these last 8, now almost 9 years, has been commercial and corporate work. That's mostly what I've done because animation and video games and all that was really hard at the time to break into from your home studio. They wanted you to come in. You had to be in LA, New York, Dallas. So it was very hard to break into at the time. So, and I was making money and things were paying well with the jobs that I was doing. So I just continued on with that. But I knew I had the character work and voices in me, and I knew I could do those. But anyways, so backtracking there, but I started practicing a little more and had to find my voice, because when I do my voice work, even commercial work, I throw my voice. I change my voice. So sometimes my pitch is lower, sometimes it's higher. And a lot of people who knew me went, I don't know, I didn't realize that was your voice. That's crazy. One of my first jobs was airport. I was the voice in the airport that you hear,
Mm-hmm.
don't leave your car in the lot and all of that on the loudspeaker. And so no one recognized my voice in that because it didn't sound like me, because I can change my voice. And so I approached commercial, every single job, I approached it from almost a character standpoint. And so I had to really, after that sinus surgery, I had to practice and figure out how to use my voice again, because it sounded so different, especially like in my sinuses. It sounded strange. And so I took quite a few months, probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months off from that to recover. And at the time, on my dream list was to learn to play the piano. And so I found a free piano, and I ended up teaching myself how to play the piano. And that's what I kept practicing and getting my voice. So it wasn't the stress of doing voiceover work and I need to do this. I was enjoying singing and playing the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me get my range back, was singing and doing vocal exercises, things like that. So that was the first setback. And then I came back and was full-time again. And then I got in a ski accident, and it wasn't massive, but it was a ski accident. And I couldn't walk, and my booth was upstairs. And so I took time off of that because I couldn't stand. And at the time I had a standing only booth. And so that was another setback. And then I came back again. And then the biggest setback, though, for me was in 2020. I have 2 kids, and we found out they had some very serious health issues. My daughter had scoliosis and needed a back brace, and eventually had to have spinal surgery
Oof.
for her scoliosis. And then at the same time, so I found out actually at the same doctor appointment that they both had something very serious. My son had a rare autoinflammatory disease called CRMO, or chronic recurrent multifocal osteomyelitis. And it's very rare. And both of those things are things where they don't know what causes them. And they happened at the same time. And they both ironically were in their backs. My son, it causes his bones to inflame. And so it basically broke one of the vertebrae on his back. And so he couldn't run or jump or play like a little boy for over a year and a half.
How old were they when they were diagnosed?
So they were younger. I'm just trying to think back. I think my son was 6 at the time.
Okay.
I believe somewhere. Yeah. And so, keeping a little boy, and he couldn't be active. He couldn't run, jump, and he was into all of those parkour, and he couldn't do that. He couldn't go to school because he was at risk of the back breaking and having a spinal cord injury. So I had to homeschool that year. And at the same time, my daughter was having to have specialized physical therapy at Children's Hospital, Seattle Children's. And and that was a 2-hour drive away. So I was for a year and a half driving once or twice a week with one child, and then the other down there for whether it's physical therapy or his infusions, doctor appointments. He had to have MRIs every 3 to 4 months for many years, and just to see if because it can appear in any bones. And so it was a very, very difficult time. And
wow. Yeah.
There was about 3 months there where they thought it was cancer, and
Oh my gosh.
it was right at Christmas, and that's when I just stopped everything. My voiceover career is nothing,
No.
to health of my children and my family. And I will do anything. I'm a big mama bear. I will protect them and want to take care of them. And so I just stopped because we didn't know, is this going to be his last Christmas? Who knows? And so sorry, a little emotional sometimes when I talk
Yeah,
about it,
sure.
but anyway, so we ended up finding out he had this rare autoinflammatory disease, which was also not a good thing. But luckily he didn't have cancer.
Right.
But that gave me a whole new perspective on life and their lives and what was important in life. And it was them. And so I stopped doing voiceover for a little while. And I had clients, I had regular clients. And so I still had to do some of the work. So I would have to cheer up, and most of my stuff was, a very happy, bubbly personality. And so that was difficult. The day that I found out about both of my kids having very serious health issues, I had to come home and do a job.
Mm,
And that was brutal. And it was a friendly, happy one, and it was a regular client. And so I had to pull through, and
yeah.
that was really difficult. So I did do a little bit of work for people, but I only did my current clients and things like that. And so it's been a few rough years for my family, and I had to pull back from full-time VO to part-time to do all of that and take care of them and doctor's appointments and homeschooling when they needed it. And so I'm glad to report that everyone is, for the most part, very healthy. And I'm back into it full time as of the beginning of this year. But I've been so thankful for this career because it's allowed me to, like you said, pull back if I needed to. And then
Hmm.
I'm jumping all in now, and I'm determined, and I feel like life is good right now, and I'm able to do this full time. And so I'm back in the game. And before, when I was doing my work, I was just doing it on my own. I wasn't on social media or anything. I didn't need to be because I was just booking work and getting paid well for it. And so I didn't need to be on social media, but the calling for the character work for me, that's really my passion. I love that. And I wanted to branch out and not only do commercial work and corporate, and I had done some video games too
Hmm.
back then, but I wanted to do more. And so that's where I jumped into social media earlier this year and just have been going full force and getting more agents. I'm trying to get more voiceover agents to do more work as well. And I did a little training for live action voiceover work, and haven't auditioned for anything yet on that. So we'll see where that takes me if I go in that direction or not. But yeah, and so we're here now, and
That's great.
yeah, I have a mixture of both my auditions from agents and a little bit. Voices.com has changed since
Hmm.
even just in the last year when I was booking work last year in the summer. It has changed so much since then. But I'll do some work through there, and then I have my direct clients and direct market work. And then hopefully maybe social media will lead to some other things. So I know I've met you. I've met so many amazing people through social media, and it's been such a cool journey for me.
It's great. And first of all, very happy to hear that your kids are doing well and that
Thank
things
you.
are things are under control, which is 100%. We have 4 children, and I know the feeling that, nothing takes precedence over your children.
Yeah.
And you're an amazing mom because, you said, nope, I'm going to take care of my children. And it's a blessing that they have you for that. So,
Thank
and the
you.
other nice thing about voiceover is that, you're working, but you're also home. You're not necessarily out of the house from 9 to 5. So you do have that ability to kind of be there when and if your kids need you, especially with young kids. So that's another advantage of doing this. We get to do this from our homes, which wasn't always the case in the early days. You did have to go out to studios, but now, I mean, all the work that I do is in this room. And I suspect that the vast majority, if not all the work that you do, is in that room that you're in. So,
Yes.
we have that. That is a luxury that I don't take for granted. Having come from the 9 to 5 world, I really value the fact that I get to control my day, and my commute is walking down 2 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
It is.
So let's talk about social media, because I have thought for quite a while, as the industry has evolved, that having a presence on social media is, I don't even think it's a luxury anymore. I think it's a requirement for us to be able to be out there in front of the people that potentially can hire us. And I've said this before on the podcast, that I think what a lot of people that come into this industry don't understand, at least initially, is that it's not a linear process. A lot of people, we think of systems thinking, that there's linear thinking. There's like a simple system, which is, I put my key in the ignition and turn it and my car turns on.
Hmm.
And that's linear. I know I take these steps and this is what happens. Like a more complicated but still linear system would be like flying an airplane. You do certain number of things and the airplane's going to fly. It's a lot more complicated, but it's still linear. If
Hmm.
I do A, B, and C, then D will happen. And what's really distracting and sometimes disheartening to people in the voiceover industry is that it's not linear at all. It's a
No.
networked system, which means you are constantly connecting with people or using the tools that are at our disposal to promote ourselves, never really knowing whether any of that's going to work or at all. But yet it's imperative that we do it, because I think establishing authentic, meaningful relationships with colleagues and people that may hire you is the essence of our industry.
Yes, I completely agree.
And one of the only ways to do it is to be active at the watering hole, which is where people go to get their information. And Gary Vaynerchuk, who's somebody that I follow, he says he doesn't even call it social media anymore. It's called interest media, because
Okay.
people are consuming the media that is interesting to them.
Exactly.
You're creating content that I'm interested in, then I'm going to watch you or listen to you.
Right.
And that's what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about I know my TikTok journey has been a little different than yours, but what's your social media journey in particular, in general, Ben, and kind of break it down by the different social medias that you're using, and how you're using them.
Sure. So I, like you said, it's necessary in this day. It's necessary, and I also was looking, and I follow the industry very closely, and even just the entertainment industry. It's it's huge. Social media is huge, and I am a person who likes to be behind the microphone and behind the camera. I'm not someone who needs lots of attention and walk into a room and there I am. I'll be the person in the background. So this has been stepping out of my comfort zone to go on social media and do all of these videos. And I actually, when I started, my very first video I posted, which I think I pulled it down from all of them because it was throwing off the algorithm, because it was so different. But I've always wanted to give back to Seattle Children's, and I'm a big believer in following and helping organizations after what my kids went through. I was on the board for helping with fundraising for my son's rare autoinflammatory disease and children's. And so I decided that I was going to do voiceover and try to get companies. So I would create commercials for them. And then I think I started with QFC because Seattle Children's needed gift cards for families who didn't. I mean, it's absolutely insane, the amount of medical bills and related medical bills. And when you have a person out of work who's not making, money to help their family, it's very difficult. And I think a lot of people don't know what families go through. And so I decided I didn't have the money. We still have lots of medical bills. And so I didn't have the money. So I decided I was going to use my voice to give back because I still have a lot to give back to children's, and I just want to give back to other families who have been in my shoes. And so I posted a video of a commercial where I was doing a commercial. I wrote the commercial because I used to be in advertising. So I wrote the commercial and did it on my own, and then tried to get QFC to donate. And then whatever, there's a lot of people on social media who will get free items from companies and brands. And so I thought, well, I don't need more stuff. I would rather give that stuff to people who could use it. And so I was hoping to go that direction and use my voice and do more commercial work on socials to get donations for families. And I learned very quickly that unless you have a presence and unless you have a good following, brands don't really care so much about you. And some of them had already been, I reached out outside of socials too. They already were donating. So that's when I kind of pivoted, because in this career, you have to pivot and go with the flow, and things are always changing. And so that's when I decided to do more of my character work, because that's what I wanted to get into. And so that's when I started doing some impressions. And then I met Kelwin, I connected with him. I found his live. He's at Kelkeys, and he was doing his work. He sings and does dubs, and also voiceover dubs too. I found him live doing it, and I could see his process and everything. So that I was hooked watching him, and I would watch his lives and take notes and everything, and then connected with him and ended up hiring him to help me kind of teach me a little more of the process. And so that's when I started doing some of the dubs as well, was because I connected with him, and then I learned how to do it on my own. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm in phase 1 right now. I like to say phase 1 of my social media journey, because right now I'm just trying to get all of the stuff out there that I can do. So if a casting director, it doesn't matter so much about the amount as it is the right people to see me.
Sure.
And so I'm trying to have a variety of different voices and emotions, and I have a little bit of my commercial work on there, and a little bit of everything, because that's kind of what I do. I do both. I know a lot of times people specialize in one or the other, but I do both. And so I'm just trying to put all of that out there, and then phase 2, I'll start doing some other more original skits, and I just have lots of ideas. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
That's great. And I know that I think you're over 1,000, right? On TikTok, 1,000 followers. So you can go live now.
Yeah. I surprisingly could go live. I think it was like 600 followers. They said
they changed it
and approved. No, they hadn't changed it. They just said I had a special, some kind of approval or something. They sent me a message saying you could go live right now. But I haven't done it because I'm still getting used to things.
It's mildly terrifying to go live.
Mildly. But I watched lives, and especially Kelwin's lives. I had watched so many of his where I feel like, okay, I can maybe do a little bit of what he does. And I'm planning to do some lives. It's just this booth can get really hot in the summer.
Yeah.
And I want to do those in the evening, and that's when it's the hottest. So I might wait till the fall. We'll see. I keep thinking I'm going to go live, and then I haven't done it yet.
Doesn't happen. Yeah. And the few times I've gone live, the things that are happening on the screen, I don't even know what's happening. Like things are popping up on the screen and stuff. And it's confusing in and of itself. I think that's just a whole science to itself, going live on TikTok. But it's valuable. People do want to tune in and find out what's going on. People do tune into those lives. And like you did, and you found
Kelwin at Kelkeys is his handle. But
and I saw that post, and I think I follow him. I went and followed him on TikTok as well, just to kind of watch that process. And I think you mentioned in the post that, did you switch, because I use Adobe Audition, you were using Adobe Audition. Did you switch based on that live or in discussions with him?
And I didn't switch. So I use, for all my commercial work and voiceover work, I use Adobe Audition. That's what I've used pretty much. I started, I think, with Audacity long time ago.
Yeah.
But I've been using that this whole time. But I could see his process, and he used Logic. So I had to learn that new DAW and what he was doing. I could mimic what he was doing, and he created a vocal chain for me in there to help with things. And so I do both. I do both of them. Mostly that for any of my dubs and character work, I'll use Logic, and then commercial work, Audition.
Adobe Audition. And for people listening, when you say dubs, you're talking about you have an image on the screen and you're dubbing your voice over it.
Exactly. So you have for example, a scene I did, Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph, and you'll see the video.
That one.
And that one's the recent one. And so you'll do the video, and then it'll be my voice instead of her voice. And some of them I try to do an impression of, and then like hers, I did more of an impression, and then others it's using my own creative spin on a character. And so you can see me down below, and voicing it. So that's what the dub is you hear my voice instead of the character voice. And so it's kind of fun. I know I always like to see the videos of behind the
Yeah.
scenes animation, and I know it's big. There's a lot of people who like to see that process, and it's fun. So yeah, so those have been really fun to work on.
So I've seen so many of them and I love them. And I love yours as well. They're so much fun to watch. And maybe this is too technical a question. How does your voice match up perfectly with the animation? Is that something with the program, or is that you just have to know when to say the lines?
You have to know when to say the lines, and you also have to match their mouth flap. And so you have to pay attention to a lot of things. So you need to, and I don't have the software. Sometimes when you're doing actual dubbing jobs, there's a certain software, voice cue. There's other ones, but where they have it running down at the bottom and you see when your lines come in and it tells you. But with these, you have to look at the video. And then also I will mute the actual character's voice and I'll take it line by line. That's why I don't record them all. The video you see is recorded afterwards because I have to go back and edit a lot because you have to time it perfectly. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And so it takes a lot of work. You got to time it perfectly. You have to it's almost like music where you have to make sure that you hit the right notes and hit the right timing for it. So it's definitely been a learning curve for sure, but
So that makes it even more impressive to me that you actually have to just get it right, as opposed to
yeah.
having the software can go, oh, no, you get it close and we can squeeze it in and make it work. No, that's not the case.
Yeah, no, it takes a lot of work. It's all manual and there's no computer moving stuff around. I am physically having to go and cut and paste and move, and I'll do a take and then realize, oh, that was a little too long. I didn't time it right. Then I have to go back and redo it. And then you have to time it and place your audio in the right spots. And so it's a lot of work. It's not a quick and simple thing. If you want the good quality, I know you can do it differently, but if you want it to really sound like it, and then there's also mixing involved, which is what Kelwin has taught me you have to match the sound of the other characters and you have to match the sound of where they're at. So for example, Vanellope, the one I used, it was kind of an echoey area. So I had to find the right reverb and adjust the levels. And so it's not quick and easy where I record and I just put it in there. I have to mix it. And sometimes you have another character that I'm talking with and I need to match the sound to theirs. So it doesn't sound strange, like I'm using my microphone and they're using a completely separate,
It has to be seamless, as if you're
Yeah.
watching the scene in the movie and the show or whatever
Exactly.
it is. So
Yeah. And I'm still learning that. I'm still not perfect. It's a learning curve for sure. And I know there's some things that I could change, but I'm just posting because otherwise sometimes you can just, I'm a perfectionist. And so sometimes you can just,
sometimes you have to stop and just
yeah,
send
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Because it is what it is. So, and then I've tried to I've done some videos that are a vintage feel. So trying to match that vintage sound. I did Witch Hazel from Looney Tunes. And so I had to match that kind of vintage vibe. I did a song from Lady and the Tramp. Her name was Peg.
Yep.
And so I tried to match her voice exactly as best as I could. That was an impression, and get the sound that the original had. And so I had to play with all the different settings, and it took a while to get that one. But yeah, so it's a lot of work for sure.
And in terms of social media, what social media platforms do you use the most, and which do you find are either that you enjoy the most or you think are the most effective for you professionally?
Okay, so far I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So far, TikTok has been the one that I'm most active on. Pretty much everything that I post is still on Instagram, but I'm not connecting. I have trouble connecting with people as much there. I'll do, messaging for business purposes with people. And that's kind of more of a professional, like almost like a business card a little bit. Whereas TikTok is really you're interacting with people. And that's where I've formed a lot of my friendships in the voiceover community is through there. And, I'm all about positivity and supporting people. So anytime I see voice actors, I try to comment on their stuff, and that starts conversations. And you can do collabs on there
Hmm.
with people. And so that's what I primarily do. And then I'll sometimes just put the stuff that I've done on TikTok. I'll put that on YouTube, and I think I have like 23 followers or something small on YouTube. So it's really small. I haven't posted all my stuff. Each one has their own set of rules and how you can do things. And, sometimes I can't have anything go over a minute on this
Hmm.
platform, but then I can't use my own music on this platform. So it's been a challenge to try and figure out how to post on all of them. I can't necessarily just make one video and then post them to all of them.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
And each one does have its own kind of feel, its own kind of universe. I've definitely found that TikTok is the place where you can build community
Yeah,
relatively quickly and effectively. You can really find people, like-minded people. Whatever it is you're interested in, you can find people who are also interested in that pretty quickly. So it really does have a sense of community.
for sure.
Instagram has always been more of a challenge. It's kind of that in between. Facebook is kind of like, keeping in touch with family. Facebook is sort of the older relative of the group. It's like a little bit old, skews a little older. And Instagram is almost very stingy in followers, in terms of letting people, engaging people. I don't know if it's the algorithm, but TikTok is much more generous in getting you in front of a lot more people, it seems to
Sure.
me anyway, from my usage of them.
Yeah.
So you kind of do have to understand what those algorithms are. But the bottom line is that as creatives, being in front of people is really important because I think for several reasons. One is developing relationships with your peers
Hmm.
and creating that network that we talked about earlier.
Right.
And then the ability to show potential employers that you are active. So for me, like in the audiobook world, somebody who might want to hire me to do an indie book, not through a publisher, and even publishers to a certain extent follow this, but somebody who's an independent author, they want to see that you're active on social media. So when then they release the book, then you're going to promote it for them.
Right.
And people are going to you're going to get eyeballs on their work. And I think that's true across all of the genres.
Hmm.
And, certain people will hire certain people based on their talent, but also will look at their social media and say, this person has a lot of followers. If I hire them, that may benefit me somehow in what I'm trying to put out into the universe.
Yep.
It operates on two different levels. The business level, which is we need to get our work out in front of people that can hire us, but also on the creative bonding with people that are like-minded. I
Hmm.
think that's a really important part because a lot of times we work in isolation. So we don't have we're not going to the office. We don't have
Right.
this workforce that we're working with. So social media becomes our community. And I think that's important too.
It does. And it's been so lonely working on my own. I'm just talking to myself in a booth and for all these years. And yeah, I was enjoying all of it. And I was different characters and different, each day I'd be someone different. And so, it was lots of fun, but I have absolutely loved meeting people on TikTok. I've met some really great friends who will probably be true friends, for a very long time. And it's just been really nice to have that community, especially in the work that we do that's so isolating. I've really enjoyed it. So community, I find TikTok is most helpful for. And then Instagram is there for people to see your business and what you do. But those connections have been great. And I'm hoping when I do go live, I want to talk with people. I want to, learn about some of my followers. And I want to do some creative stuff where we create things together as a community. And, maybe I was going to do something where we do it a new take on, Hansel and Gretel or some, fairy tale where they get to be the directors and they get to choose because I can adjust my voice. So they can say, okay, what do we want him to say? Well, we're going to turn it into like a 2025 version and we can come up with a script and they can tell me what to do for the voice. And it makes it a whole fun community thing. So I'm hoping to do more things like that. Though people will see me working behind the scenes as well. But I just love the community and coming together. And it's fun for followers. I know when I've watched Kelwin's lives, people like to give their input. And then when they see it go and be posted, they can say, oh, I gave him that suggestion for that line, or I.
Right.
And so they like it. And so I want to be able to showcase and have people feel like it is a community when I post a video, that they saw the process and that they were part of it. So that's what my goal is, at least for the future.
And I think TikTok is so perfect for that because, like you said, that's what people come to TikTok for, is that community. And so I've done over 140 interviews on this podcast. And one of the things I was thinking about using live for was to do like shortened versions
Mhm.
of interviews. So like a live interview.
Yeah.
They can go listen to Melissa's interview on my page or on Apple or wherever they listen to podcasts. But oh, by the way, we're going to be live. We're going to do like an abbreviated version live on TikTok where
Yeah.
we're just going to get together and basically I'm going to interview you and we're going to talk. And then maybe there's a question that I didn't ask you that somebody wanted to ask. Well, I want
Yeah.
to know about this or that. That would be so cool. So
Yeah.
I might
Sure.
hit you up for that in the near future.
I'd love to do that. It's nice to answer questions and things like that. I know Kelwin does a really good job where he'll do his lives, but then he'll pause in his work when someone has a question, and so they're asking about, how do I get into voice acting, or what do you use? What is this software or this plugin or whatever? And he'll stop and answer those questions. And that's what I loved about lives, just watching other people's lives, is to be able to ask questions. And it's cool for people to see when they see your videos, whether it's entertainment or business. It's cool for people to jump in live and ask questions and really interact with people who they might be a fan of. So I think your idea is excellent. I'm in.
Good, you're in. And I
Yeah.
think again, we're just entering into this world of it used to be there were the creative people and then they would hire people to do these jobs for them. And it was this hierarchy of work. And all those walls have just been crumbling down. And we are the creators of our own lives, both professionally and personally. And I think the aspect of social media that's allowing people to do that, to just become whoever they want to become in the context of these social media platforms, has just been liberating to people, especially creatives, because they can come up with ideas like you just did and go, I'm going to try that. I'm going to go do that on my social media and see what happens and get the feedback from people. And it's all happening, iterating in real time, which to me is just utterly fascinating. I mean, we're living
Oh,
in a fascinating time. In some respects, a scary time in some
yeah.
areas like AI and all that stuff. But in the creative field, I think that humans, I hope, will always want to interact with other humans. I think if we lose our humanity, we're just done. So
Yeah.
hopefully we haven't and we won't. But I still think that there's always a part of us deep down inside that wants real human beings to interact with, especially creatively.
I agree. And that's why Comic-Cons are so
Hmm.
so successful, because they want to meet those people. And that's why I felt social media was so important, especially TikTok, was so I might not be able to do a Comic-Con, or that might not happen, but I can still interact with people. And they can, if someone is a fan of someone's work, you can still interact with them and meet them, maybe not live, but meet them. And so I think that the entertainment industry is changing and things are becoming a little more interactive, and you can still have that human connection. And AI might take over some things, but AI can't take over that. You might be able to interact with a fake AI person, but that it's AI and it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as a real live person that you're talking to and genuinely getting a response from. So I think that will still be there. Things will
I
definitely
think so.
change, but I'm hoping so.
Perfection's not fun. The beauty is in imperfection, I
Yeah,
believe. So,
I agree. I agree.
perfection, who needs perfection?
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, if you were sitting across from an aspiring voice actor, if there was one single piece of advice that you could give them, what do you think that would be?
Oh, the single piece of advice is a hard one. I know most people say, oh, take acting classes or things like that. But I'm not going to say that one because I think what's most important is your mindset and what you believe and believing in yourself and believing that you can do hard things and that you believe in yourself and your work and what you can do. Without that, you're going to struggle and you won't actually take an acting class and you won't go anywhere. So you need that mindset of, you know what, I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm going to try it, see where it takes me, and having that confidence to follow your dreams and make that happen. So that's what I would say is having the right mindset, believing in yourself, have confidence, and just go for it. Give it a shot.
I love it. Absolutely, positively love that, because one of the things I tell people all the time in the beginning is the first thing to do is get focused. Is this something really that you want to do? This isn't an easy industry to get involved in and to break into, but it's an amazing industry and it's a very giving industry. And I would say if I can do it, anybody can do it. You and I both come from very different backgrounds. We came from backgrounds that were not necessarily related at all to voiceover, and here we are,
Right.
doing this on a full-time basis. So it just takes the right mindset, like you said. So I love that. That's a perfect piece of advice and a perfect place to wrap up.
Yes.
But before we do, where can people find you?
You can find me. So melissamirren.com is my website. And then TikTok is Melissa Mirren VO. And then YouTube and Instagram is Melissa Mirren.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, check out her videos, connect with Melissa. You will not be disappointed. Incredibly talented. And
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey with my listeners. And I wish you continued success on your journey.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I wish you big success as well. And I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. Head on over to MikeLenzVOPodcast.com for links and recaps of each show. Catch you next time on the Mike Lenz VO Podcast.